What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Beal of EmpowermentUnlimited.net, welcoming you to another spin of the Celestial Compass. Just a reminder that I have forecasts freely available for the month, for the full moon, which is today as we are talking live, and for every new moon at omtimes.com and also at my site, empowermentunlimited.net. We can also get quickie podcasts for every week. So just a brief bringing you up to speed for what is going on right now in the sky. The three big things to keep in mind, well, maybe four, for the month of July are that we have a really heavy Leo influence all month long, several bodies moving in and out of the sign, but always something in it. And this is very strong. Strut your stuff, express your real self, have fun with things. It's very gregarious energy. And it's definitely nobody puts baby in the corner energy. One tweak that's going to come with that next week, Mars, the ruler of our drive, is going to go out of Leo and move into Virgo, which will bring kind of an underlying fix-it vibe, make things better vibe to a lot of what we do. And I would encourage you to direct some of that to your own well-being and how you actually look and feel about yourself. Venus in Leo will like that. Venus will go retrograde. There's already a lot of noise about this online. Venus is retrograde from July 22nd until September 3rd. And as with any planetary retrograde, this is an excellent time to go back over and revisit matters that are associated with her, which would be relationships, things you value, your own creativity, since she's in Leo, self-expression, validation, issues like that. People from the past are very likely to show up, but do not consider any past partner or potential partner who pops up during this retrograde as a signal from the universe that you must let this person into your life, because things tend to not have the value that they present during a Venus retrograde. Instead, I encourage you to look at this stretch of time as a protracted, self-paced soul retrieval, where you will run into something that used to be important to you or used to express something in your life, and you can compare it to where you are now, and maybe you'll pull something out and say, I want this back in, and maybe you'll say, oh my God, I'm glad that is gone. One final thing to note, on the 17th, the nodes of the moon shift from the signs where they've been for past year and a half or so, from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra, highlighting an emphasis on relationships, or where you are, like me and you, or I and we, how you fit into how your identity fits into the equation with another person in your life, and possibly revisiting some of the relationship ground rules in your life. And again, you can read a lot more about this in the forecasts at Om Times and at my site, empowermentunlimited.net. And now enough about me. I am very excited that astrologer Mark Borax has come back. Mark was here at the end of last year. He is the creator of Soul Level Astrology, and he's a New York Times best-selling author. And now he's going to tell us about his radical revision of the 12 zodiac signs in his latest book, The Ruby Heart of the Dragon. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Kath. It's great to be back.
I'm very glad you're here. So, how's life treating you these days?
I'm really on the reaping side for the first time, maybe in my whole life. I've been doing a lot of sowing for many, many years, and especially this most recent book I wrote 7 days a week for 4 years and 3 months, and then just finally have released it. And it was like a long pregnancy that I just finally gave birth.
That's that metaphor definitely fits, and it's also completely in keeping with your skills as a communicator and a poet. You're also a songwriter, correct?
Yeah,
And a poet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that fits perfectly. As a starting point for our conversation, I would like to ask you to explain to people who aren't really fully aware your method of astrology, soul level astrology.
Sure. Soul level astrology is something I created in 1987 when I first became a practicing professional astrologer in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I wanted a way to distinguish my practice because there were a lot of other astrologers around San Francisco. And I was inspired by the recent PBS interview of Bill Moyer with Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, where Campbell, near the end of his life, put out a worldwide call for new stories. He said the old stories are obsolete and they're killing everything. We need new stories. And I thought, well, that's what astrologers do, really. We give people new stories. And if I'm going to do that for a living, there's going to have to be stories from the soul. And one of the main differences between soul level astrology and many other kinds is that I don't think I am the expert who knows who you are and who you should be and what you should do. I feel I'm the guide to take you down into the parts of yourself that already knows that.
So your astrology isn't, some people do a lot of forecasting like I do, but yours is highly personal, focused on the individual. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yeah, it just has the accent isn't on the predictive side of astrology. I'm pretty light on the predictive side, but I'm pretty heavy on the counseling side of exposing your core nature. Underneath all the layers, the karma, the past lives, all the personalities and the masks, getting down to the core, getting down to the soul.
This is something that you have, it's been in your writing before. Crossing the bridge to the future, didn't that also fit in this category?
Yeah, absolutely. But that wasn't an astrology book. So the difference is that my first book was a memoir about my apprenticeship with a wild wizard in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And so I talked in there about a whole new astrology that we gave birth to in the mystery school under the redwood trees. But now the new book is the first astrology book I'm writing where I actually tear down the 12 signs of the zodiac and build them back up again.
So that is why you call it a radical revision of the zodiac signs?
That's right. That's right. I pushed myself to clear away all the cliches and my own and other people's and everything I thought I knew about the signs and just take each one all over again, almost as if I'd never entered them before, and really excavate and get down in and under, as if each sign is a country, like this fascinating and dangerous country. So I wrote it more like a travelogue than an academic exercise.
And that comes across, and there are big streaks of autobiography in it as illustrations also.
That's right. I dipped into my own personal adventures in some chapters more than others, in order to flesh it out, because I'm not so much a big theoretical astrologer as I am a practical, artistic, intuitive one. So I'm really trying to write in a way that conjures the actual living experience of the sign, like really good poetry or literature doesn't only describe the ideas, they actually conjure the ideas, and that's why the book was so challenging and took so long to write.
And I will say it succeeds in completely blowing out the stereotypes that tend to dog each of these signs very successfully. Especially, I have this one Taurus friend who's really, really sensitive to how it gets stereotyped. And I think she needs to read this book because she would be so happy that you don't talk about Taurus eating everything in sight, which is how she. When I told her there's a navigation app called Waze that will have a voice talk to you in your sign. And it's kind of amusing. I told her this, and she said, "It's just going to say Taurus will eat all the cars on the road." I went, "No, will not say that. It does not say that." But you take it into like a really heart-centered and compassionate and understanding vision. And I'm guessing this is based on your exploring of how these different archetypes work in your own life, but also what you have observed with your client base for decades.
It's my own life, my client base, and maybe even more. I've had such a broad and diverse love life that at one time or other, I've been in love with just about every sign of the zodiac and spent some months or years with them. And so I was really just grokking a lot by going backwards into what it was like to be in love with each of the signs and the things that I learned about that. And one of the things I put on myself was I wanted to write in such a way that if someone from any of the 12 signs were on the verge of committing suicide, that after they read their chapter, maybe they wouldn't.
That's quite a mission.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that not to say it's all serious, because it's really funny, and I go into a lot of places with it, but I had to grok the signs from the inside out, from the heart and the soul, also pointing out their shadow, their karma, but what makes them unique. And it really pushed me as a writer and an astrologer beyond anything I'd done in those arts previously.
It's a unique work. You focus on 3 points in the chart that are past, present, and future. So you combine the sun and the nodes, which are the dragon tail and the dragon head, or the south node and the north node.
That's right, because I remembered something my teacher once told me many years ago, which was that if he only knew 3 things about someone, he could still do a full, profound reading for them, and it would just be their sun sign and their degree of their sun, even more, and the north and south nodes of the moon. And that just stuck in the back of my head for years, and I noticed that I'd inadvertently been interpreting a lot of birth charts that way, without necessarily reducing it to that, because I still had the full chart in front of me. But when it came time to write a book about the sun signs, which I kept putting off for decades because I just didn't feel like I'd gone deep enough into them before. But when it came time to finally start writing the book, it popped up that if I can describe to someone the sign they're leaving behind and the one they're getting toward, then their sun sign would be in the middle, because in between the dragon's tail and the dragon's head is its heart. And so I came to look at your sun sign as the ruby heart of the dragon, which rubies shine laser beams. And so when you ignite the true core of your sun sign, which the book is intended to do, not just inform readers, but actually ignite their ruby heart, then it can shine a laser beam through the dragon's eyes out towards the future that their soul is trying to get to, and help them resolve some of the issues way down at the tail end of where they're coming from.
And you actually saw a creature that has a ruby heart. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's right. That's right. In the insect room at the San Francisco Zoo, in the scorpion cage terrarium, there were some small translucent scorpions that I could see a little red pinprick of their heart in their body, which instantly reminded me of Scorpio in the sky, because when you see Scorpio in the sky, Aldebaran, which is its first magnitude star, is a red star. It's a pinkish star right about the same place in the body of the constellation Scorpio as it was in the actual little scorpions I was looking at.
That is a segment that really just stands out in the book. It makes it real. Like, okay, this is what you're doing. So you incorporated all this in the title to the book. It's a code for what's happening in the book.
That's
the
right.
Ruby Heart of the Dragon. Okay.
That's right. There's a few codes in there because I wrote the book on a multi-dimensional level, like good poetry. If you're or drama, if you're 12 years old and you read Hamlet, you might get a lot out of it, and then you might come back and read it when you're 67 or 90. And now it's the same play that it always was, but maybe now you're grasping much more of the artistry. And so I tried to write conversationally to make it easy to read, but also poetically to make it provocative. And so you're talking about some of the codes that kind of, I didn't necessarily consciously plant all those patterns in there. I just found them evolving while I wrote.
That often happens with writing. It presents itself to you, and you're the conduit. It's not you.
Don't blame me. I'm just a messenger.
Yeah, right. So on one way, the reader could use this book to learn about like their own signature and understand the signatures of people in their lives, so they can understand what their south node says in conjunction with their north node, and then how their sun sign fits in the middle of it.
That's right. That's right. There's a way you can use the book, and I have a table in the back of the book, so you can look up just by knowing your birthday. You don't need to know your birthplace, and you don't need to know your birth time as if I was doing a whole chart for you. But if you just even know your birthday, you can pretty well narrow in with the tables in the back of the book on what your dragon's head and dragon's tail are. And so if you read about that, you can learn my impression of where you're coming from and where you're trying to go. And then if you also read about your sun sign, you get more of a feel for where you're at. So the book can be used in a linear fashion, in a therapeutic fashion for yourself and for other people you know, if you know their birthday. And it can also be used as a just meditation on the signs of the zodiac, even a meditation on life, to just deepen the art of life. Because, and I say this in the book, every life is an art, just like painting or sculpture or music. And I'm really working to carve the reader's art, to help them carve their art out of the material.
You suggest, though, I mean, often in a book like this, a first-time reader is tempted to pick it up and immediately flip to, oh, where's my sun sign? Boo. But you suggest reading it all the way through, that approach would actually deny somebody of a benefit that you have encoded in here. We'll use that word again.
Well, I've only spoken to one reader so far who's at least admitted to me that they skipped to their own sign, which happened to be Pisces, so they skipped everything. they just went to the last sign, and you know, she read in my introduction that I said I don't recommend that, but what the hell, you got to do it any way you want. But the thing that I found, Kathy, this was the most satisfying part of that task, was I found myself weaving together zodiacal comparisons and sequences where something in the first sign Aries goes all the way to set up something in the 12th sign, even though it takes you the whole book to get back to it. There's all these little threads and interweavings, and it really helped me locate the zodiac in this sense of not just what each sign is on its own, which I fully tried to represent, each sign totally unique, but even so, playing a role different than every other sign in the overall tapestry.
And it does read it does come across as an evolutionary process. First, there's energy that does this, and then it moves to this, and then to this, which it makes it easier to read, I think, because each thing builds on the other, and it gives you without hitting people over the head with it, you make a case for everything builds on everything that was before.
Thank you. I really got a lot of satisfaction out of that part of it, and that was the quality of the book that I least expected when I first began writing it. That was the biggest surprise for me, was not just that I had something vital to say about each sign, but that I also had something very original that I hadn't really seen any other astrologers do before in terms of how they all work together. And that was satisfying because, like I said, it was unexpected, and I had to work. Once I saw it emerging, I had to really push myself more in that direction.
So this would be useful for someone who actually is open to reading more than their own sun, because every sign is somewhere in your chart. It might be on a cusp to a house, it might be on an angle, it might be in an intercepted house, but every sign is somewhere.
That's right, and I tried to make it interesting so that I don't do many same comparisons. I might say something about Aries, and I don't even say a similar correspondence to that necessarily in Taurus. And so by making each sign, like I said, a country of its own, China is its own thing, and so is Australia, and so is Vietnam, and so is Japan and South Africa. And yeah, they may be in the similar part of the world as some of those other countries, but they're their own thing. And I worked really hard to do that because I wanted to hook the person right off the bat by going deep and sharp and juicy into the Aries chapter to provoke them so much, to get them to think that they needed to read all of it, not just about themselves. And then by the time they get to themselves, I think it's a much deeper experience.
And I think it also awakens an understanding of, well, I have some of this in me too, even in chapters that are not your sun.
That's right, because everyone has all 12 signs, but in a unique mix. And just like every single painting that's ever been done in history uses all the same colors. There's not some color X that never was used before in history. And so I look at the signs like that. Every person's birth chart uses all the same signs, but in some different blend that perhaps hasn't been done before.
And also, you kind of group the signs in sequence in a way that I hadn't encountered before. I mean, you have a concept of the passion corridor, but could you start with Aries goes into Taurus, goes into Gemini and Cancer? Are those four that you kind of see as a combined sequence? Do you know what I'm referring to here?
I didn't draw attention to that in the book, but many of these sequences can be found when you're really looking and open. So, in the book I made a point of talking about Aries, Taurus, and Gemini especially as really the more basic signs, almost the more primitive signs, that they lack a lot of the complexity of many of the later signs. And I did talk about two corridors, which over the years I've just noted this, that I see Cancer, Leo, and Virgo as the hospitality corridor of the zodiac, that those three signs seem to share a strong feeling of wanting to make other people feel at home. And I talked about the passion corridor as Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sag, and Capricorn. And I wrote about how I thought each of those signs contributes a passion that all contributes to Capricorn. The end of that passion corridor, Capricorn becomes very swollen because each of those previous signs in that same corridor seem to feed it.
I would not have previously connected Capricorn with the notion of passion.
Yeah, and there are many more variations. I have found many more variations on the sign of Capricorn by far than any other of the 12 signs. So I have known Capricorns with zero passion. I mean, the closer you get to them, the more you just fall asleep. There's just nothing there. And I have known Capricorns more sizzling, than the hottest Sagittarian and so for me, Capricorn is the one sign that breaks all the stereotypes, and many of them are really struggling with issues of judgment and self-judgment, and in many cases, that subdues a lot of their passion. But when you find a Capricorn who's really alive and tuned in, it's a very deep passion. It's not a surfacey passion. To get to the passion of Capricorn, you usually got to dig.
And with that, we're going to take our first break. Everyone hang around, actually our only break. Hang out with us for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll be back with a lot more about this. Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again, empowermentunlimited.net. Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We're talking today with astrologer Mark Borax, the creator of Soul Level Astrology and the author of the recently released book, The Ruby Heart of the Dragon. And just before the break, we were talking about the passion corridor of the zodiac culminating in Capricorn, which was a mind-blowing concept for some of you out there, I am certain. That's an example of the absolutely compassionate and insightful revisioning of the signs that just fills this entire book, seeing things in ways that make sense when you look at them that way, but I'm willing to bet you hadn't previously thought of them. So there's a very Uranian streak in this book, I would say. So after we get through the passion corridor, what do you do with Aquarius and Pisces?
Well, that's the wild curve that all the other signs have led to. And people who read the book sequentially, by the time they get to Aquarius, they've gone through 10 other stages, 10 other journeys of individuation, 10 other life arts. And then when you get to Aquarius, I see Capricorn as raising selfhood to its highest, wrestling, soul wrestling on the transcendental highway, wrestling with karma, wrestling with shadow, in order to really purify human selfhood as much as it can. So then in Aquarius, it's not up to Aquarius somehow advance human selfhood even higher, so much as clear it out into a vessel, hallow it out. That each human nature, especially from the Aquarian point of view, isn't a thing of its own. It's not. Each person isn't like a dense fortress of its own, but a vessel where if you show up as authentically as the person you really are, you in Aquarius don't become so much of an issue as you become a chalice where now life and spirit and art and love and work can flow through you because there's less of your own ego persona in the way, and you become selfhood becomes more transparent, more fluid. At least that's what wants to happen after Capricorn in the stage of Aquarius, and then Pisces, which is the final sign in the zodiac, is making peace with incarnation, with the huge waves of incarnation, especially at this time on Earth. Massive challenges to even just be human, to even show up, to even really participate. Pisces is really trying to arrive during a time where a lot of things are departing, and so you have to kind of go against the tide in a certain way, and I work the duality of Pisces quite a bit, like I work the duality of Gemini as well, because arriving like that isn't just a simple thing, that a one-pointed thing. There's counter drives and counter drives. So if you can really stand fast in the gales of incarnation, the tsunami of strange changes going on around the world at this time, you really make peace with the seven seas.
I'm gonna have to take that one in. All right, so reader gets through all of these and sits and thinks about their sun, and then looks up their north node and the south node. In your afterword, you actually give kind of you give a roadmap for how someone can use everything you've just said, regardless of what their chart is.
Yeah, I added that afterward part to round out the experience of the book, because each chapter dives into the strange, fascinating country of a single sign, and then winds up with 2 pages describing what that sign would be like if it were at the head or tail of somebody's dragon. But those 2 methods felt that they needed something more, which was a condensed version of putting all the signs together, almost like creating a play or a movie or a dragon, that to kind of complete it. So I give like a paragraph, I sum up the Aries stage and how it leads to Taurus and Gemini and so on, and I couch that version with setting that up a little bit, and then taking it out again to really animate the dragon, to really make it come alive.
Have you noticed, parallel to your working on this, a surge in dragon imagery in the world at large, by any chance?
Well, I have, but I was relating that to, like, as soon as you buy a new kind of car, all of a sudden you can't stop seeing that model everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't sure if that was something subjective, that I was just starting to notice more dragons because I was working on the dragon all those years, or whether it actually was maybe objectively going that way.
Well, I haven't been working on dragons, and I will confirm to you that their energy is definitely on the rise in some really startling ways. So this might speak to a lot of people. And I noticed, I mentioned this earlier, but throughout this book, there are autobiographical notes that actually illustrate whatever the sign is, or the challenge of the sign, or the potential of the sign, even though you might not yourself have in your chart something that is that.
That's
It's a
right.
real, yeah. No,
Yeah,
go ahead, please.
yeah, because I wanted to free up the signs of, kind of a cheap and dirty way to use astrology is, oh, they're a Gemini. I don't think I'm going to invite them to my party because they talk too much. And rather than that, they're some part of you. They're not just Gemini. You're Gemini too. And so there were some chapters where, because I've had a wacky, gypsy, crazy life, and
You think?
and and I knew I needed to use that because I wanted something more to distinguish my book from maybe many other astrology books, where there were places where I felt that by dipping into my life's actual experiences, some of which are more mundane experiences, falling in love, having sex, uh, and some of which are totally unusual, like riding a Harley Davidson halfway around the world and things like that. And I knew that if I restricted my own personal tales to only where they really needed to be, because they furthered my description, then there were some chapters where I didn't use me at all, and others where I used me heavily, and most were something in between.
It makes for fascinating reading, I'll say that. For those of us who bore easily, this book will not do that to you at all. So I do have a couple of other topics I'd like to ask you about, but before we leave this, is there anything else you want to express about the book, or your experience with it, or how it fits into your way of life, or anything at all?
Well, it's just been so much fun to go on many podcasts and just talk with people, because each one of you ends up asking me different things. So instead of me getting bored, I'm talking about certain angles of the book with you that I haven't talked much about with others. So I'm appreciating that. I did also want to mention that my College of Visionaries and Wizards is looking for some new students who might want to come into our 3-year program. And so if anyone is interested in finding out about that, they could email me at markborax.com.
Oh, great. And so people could learn how to do this for themselves
That's right.
with a wizard that's off in the mountains. Okay. Not the redwoods, but the mountains. Okay.
Yeah, the Green Mountains of Vermont.
Next stage wizardry. Okay. I noticed that you have, although you don't engage in forecasting like to the extent that some of us do, you do acknowledge working with cosmic weather, and I see that you had a talk on using the cosmic weather to break out of old stories, which is continuing Joseph Campbell's work. By the way, I got to hear him talk live under unusual circumstances. I showed up somewhere and there was something sparkly, and I looked at it and I said, I must have that. And it turned out they were tickets to hear him that someone had to give away. And I just, oh, they're mine.
Wow.
So,
Well,
yeah.
what a great story. I love it.
I am all stories. But so breaking out of old stories, using the current cosmic weather to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels to me, and I'm mostly basing this on Pluto's transit of Aquarius, which is approximately 20 years. We're just in the first year of a 20-year period of the god of hell moving through the sign of revolution. And the last time Pluto was in the sign of revolution was back in the American Revolution and the French and the Haitian Revolution. So I'm kind of looking at the current cosmic weather. When I say current, really the next 20 years, that we're entering this make it or break it period where we got to remember the love that we're made of. We got to break out of the illusion of normalcy. Recognize Your soul came here at this time because it needs to be here at the crossroads of the ages to help put your own weight on the side of, is humanity going to wake up and remember that we're all made of love, that you came for love, that you're here for love. And you got to find your own version of that. You got to make that yours. And so when I look at the intensity of Pluto, I feel Pluto saying, hey, humanity has been in a living hell of its own creation, brother against brother, race against race, gender against gender, and we got to bust out of that. And the revolution is an inner revolution more than an outer one, to just really use that cosmic weather to wake up.
And I have detected, and I have observed that when Pluto changes signs, there's a shift in the expression of power. And you've used the phrase sourcing power to the soul for the potential of Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was working on with this book, is getting down to the soul of every sign, the soul of the reader. Just that there is this power in all of us. There is this power in you, and it doesn't get fully tapped unless you tap it. Most people are leading lives of quiet desperation, and when you tap that power of the soul, it's not like everything gets easy and wonderful and turns into a happy ending. It's just that everything gets very real and shamanic and gritty and artistic, and it feels like it's now or never in these 20 years. So I'm looking at that current and long-range cosmic weather.
What did you observe in our first few months of Pluto? I called it sitting at the doorway to the future, when Pluto was just sitting at 0 Aquarius.
It really felt tingly, like something was wanting to come in. And when I found myself getting caught in old projections, in old thought forms, old paradigms, unhealed emotional issues of my own, I was oblivious to the new tingle. But it seemed as soon as I was willing to let go of a lot of the old patterns, that it was almost instant that something new is beginning to happen. And even if it's only happening on a tentative feeling level, like it was, let's say, around 1965, maybe 66, even if the revolution in consciousness was only starting to tingle in 65, something big was going to follow, and that was the sense that I had.
So you were tying it to that time period. Interesting. And the reason I say that is, as Saturn goes through Pisces, it's going to oppose the Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo that
right.
was in place in 65, 66.
That's right, which made Virgo the key sign of the 1960s thing, which many astrologers don't really point to that, but really when Uranus and Pluto came together in the 1960s in Virgo, I see Virgo as renunciation. Virgo is the sign that has to get rid of, purify, release. And that was the thing in the 60s, which is, and I, as a young person then, we didn't know what we were going to replace the old world with, but we knew we had to get rid of it. And it was the Virgo thing of cleansing, clearing. And I feel that what's happening now at this time is really that we have to ground. That Saturn and Pisces energy is grounding the deep compassion of what it means to be human, what it means to share this world with animal species and people of a different political party. Just that Saturn and Pisces, the depth of anchoring your love, not just conceptualizing a better world, but working on it.
And then that also that connects to the power shift of Pluto into Aquarius. Interesting. I hadn't connected Pluto's shift to what was going on in the 60s, but it certainly makes all the sense in the world.
Well, yeah, because we're still working to get fully, to get the early Aquarian age really going here. I mean, when an age is 2,173 years, it takes a while to really get in it. So, having the deepest planet of all in the sign of the age has got to be a major shamanic initiation.
So what do you make of this, where we are right now with Pluto having retrograded back into the institutional or highly passionate sign of Capricorn?
Well, it's going to continue to expose false power, false government, false patriarchy, and it's gonna hang out here for about 9 months, and then go back into Aquarius for a little while, then go back into Capricorn for a little while, and finally stay in Aquarius for 19 years. So I think there's a little, like, we're in the karmic rinse cycle of the washing machine, trying to clean the laundry before just diving into Aquarius.
I am going to quote you on that. That is beautifully put.
Go right ahead. You take it.
Wow. Okay. Right. Because, I mean, I've been looking at it like, okay, we're cleaning out a failed root canal. And sometimes it feels that awful.
Oh, no, that's exactly what I had to do 2 weeks ago. I'd had a root canal decades ago that had to get cleaned out again just now. So I just went through that.
And often this stuff is archetypes play out in real life all the time. Like, okay, yeah, this fits. Well, okay. All my notes are gone. What else would you like to talk about? We have a few minutes left. What's interesting you these days?
Well, I just want to let people know that I have a print version of the Ruby Heart of the Dragon, Sun Signs for Our Times, and I have an audio version that I recorded myself. I had the time of my life in the recording studio because I'm also a trained actor and musician, and it was just so exciting for me to get into that microphone and perform my book. And also there's an ebook version, so there's 3 different ways that people can get the Ruby Heart of the Dragon, and it's starting to get good press, starting to get noticed more around the world, and I'm so excited when I hear from readers who write to me with questions or observations. It just makes me feel deeply satisfied.
Ah, so there's your invitation, listeners. Read the book and give feedback. Actually, everyone appreciates feedback on their work, so good that you're open to it. Yay. And they can get it from your site? Is it available at stores online? What?
Yeah, it's available at stores. It's available on Amazon. They can get it at my website, therubyheartofthedragon.com. There's many ways to get it, and anyone who gets that book and reads it, I would love, especially if you get it at Amazon, to write an Amazon review, because right now we only have about 6 Amazon reviews, and we're trying to build it up because the book just came out. So that's my other invitation to you.
Make your impression of this known. Well, I think I have to get this from my Taurus friend who says everyone says that she just eats. So, because this doesn't talk at all about that. It talks about what she does, which is work all the time and just put tools out for other people. And there's that level of very positive re-envisioning for every single sign here.
You'll have to let me know what she says after she reads it.
I certainly will. And she's going to hear this show tomorrow and send me pointed messages, I'm sure. Yeah. So also, okay, so your website, markborax.com, is where people can go to find out about your school, the certification course.
That's right. We have the College of Visionaries and Wizards, me and my wife, Marcella Eversole. This is our 15th or 16th year as a college. We offer various programs, but the main one is a 3-year chart study course. We meet once a week on Zoom, and once a year in the summer, you have an option to come be with us at our home at no extra charge but the tuition. And I teach you how to read birth charts the magical, soulful way that I do. You can find out about that on my website, also on soulfulastrology.com. It's the College of Visionaries Wizards chart study program. We've already gone 1 year in, but this summer is the last time we open our doors to students who want to jump in the current program by catching up on the recordings with a summer self-study program. So people can find out about that if they email me.
And what are the other sorts of things that people could study? You said there were several programs.
Yeah, my wife Marcella teaches a course. She's been teaching a course, I forget the name of it. It has to do with the sacred feminine in connection to Venus. She's been teaching a course with her good friend Mireya Alejo, and we often have other courses. I'm probably going to be offering an adjunct course in September along with the chart study program, but different from it, though I haven't figured out the name of that one yet. So they can look at previous classes on the website, and they can sign up for my free email newsletter. I have a monthly newsletter called the Cosmic Weather Report, and right on the homepage of markborax.com, they can sign up and they'll find out any other short and long classes that I have to offer here and there.
So everyone go check this out, scope it out, see what's there, and definitely read this book. I know there are a number of book junkies out there. Those of you who've been cleaning your bookshelves out, well, you could get the audiobook. It wouldn't take up space. Or get it on your Kindle, iPad, or something. Anyway, thank you, Mark. It's a delight talking with you.
Kathy, it's a pleasure. It's been really enjoyable. Some of the questions and comments you made were already what I was thinking. So we were really tuning into each other, and I just appreciate the way you think and the way you help present me to new listeners.
Well, my Leo Moon says thank you so much for the acknowledgement.
And you're welcome.
And everyone, remember, you can check out my forecasts at omtimes.com, monthly moon, full moon and new moon forecasts, and also at my site, empowermentunlimited.net, and my YouTube channel is Professional Aquarian. So if you prefer to just listen to stuff, you can get it there. It's also on audio on omtimes.com. Thanks very much. Everyone be safe, and we'll talk again in 2 weeks.